We have significant breaking news from the International Ice Hockey Federation. They have banned Russia and Belarus from competing in international events for the foreseeable future. We'll discuss what this means and what the long-term implications could be coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have some pretty significant news today from the IIHF regarding the participation of Russia and Belarus in future international ice hockey competitions. Of course, due to everything going on over with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and Belarus is essentially an ally and have been helping them. They're both countries have been officially basically banned or kicked out of the International Ice Hockey Federation for at least the time being. Now, we don't really have an end date when this is going to stop and when they can resume participation. A lot of that is going to be determined likely on how the events over in Ukraine and how everything plays out here throughout the future. There's a lot of potential things that we could see here that come from this. As we talked about yesterday, we talked a little bit about the fact that there's a lot of events scheduled to be going on in Russia over the next year or two. Obviously, there's all kinds of Russian hockey players that not only would participate in these events if they were able to, but play in North America and the NHL. Could their work visas be impacted? There is a lot of stuff going on here. So first up, before we go any further, let's first take a look at the statement released here by the IIHF, and they also have a statement regarding the NHL, so kind of 2 cents on this situation as well, and their dealings of Russian business partners. So let's take a look here at both of those statements before we carry on through the rest of the video. So the statement from the IIHF says, during an extraordinary meeting held on Monday, the 20th of February, the IIHF Council evaluated the impact of the current war. The IIHF strongly condemns the use of military force in Ukraine and urges the use of diplomatic means to solve the conflict. The IIHF Council has decided to take the following actions: suspension of all Russian and Belarusian national teams and clubs from participation in every age category in all IIHF competitions or events until further notice. Withdrawal of the 2023 IIHF World Junior Championship hosting rights from Russia. Of course, they were supposed to, be hosting that one here coming up in December of this year, which obviously starts around Christmas time and carries over to January 2023. So it's called the 2023 tournament. And the remainder of the statement here says the IIHF is not a political entity, cannot influence decisions being taken over the war in Ukraine. We nevertheless have a duty of care to all of our members and participants and must do all we can to ensure that we are able to operate our events in a safe environment for all teams taking place in the International Ice Hockey Federation World Championship program. We were incredibly shocked to see the images that have come out of Ukraine. I have been in close contact with the Ice Hockey Federation of Ukraine, and we hope all Ukrainians that this conflict can be resolved in a peaceful way and without the need for further violence. Signed, the president of the International Ice Hockey Federation, Luc Tardif. Now, of course, Tardif's only been on the job here for 4 or 5 months, and he's had a lot to deal with after taking over from Rene Fossel. Of course, he not only had the situation here with this, but he also had the COVID situation, the rescheduling of the World Juniors. It's been, I'm sure, a stressful time on the job for him. Now, as I mentioned, the NHL also has a statement out here today as well. Let's take a look at that. It says the National Hockey League condemns Russia's invasion of Ukraine and urges a peaceful resolution as quickly as possible. Effective immediately, we are suspending our relationship with business partners in Russia, and we are pausing our Russian language social and digital media sites. In addition, we are discontinuing any consideration of Russia as a location for any future competitions involving the NHL. Of course, we know that the NHL likes to go abroad and promote the game throughout the world. We've seen games in a lot of different countries, and although there were a lot of discussions around some things coming up over in that country, and that's not on the table here anymore. We also remain concerned about the well-being of the players from Russia who play in the NHL and on behalf of their NHL clubs and not on behalf of Russia. We understand they and their families are being placed in extremely difficult positions. So, of course, with the next event for the IIHF coming up here would be the World Championships in Finland. So Russia and Belarus will not be allowed to participate there. The following World Juniors that are being redone in August, which is the 2022 tournament, They will not be able to participate in that tournament. And then, of course, the 2023 tournament, right now, they're moving the hosting rights from Russia. And it says, like I said, the timelines are until further notice. So I guess a lot of this, whether or not they can compete in those additional tournaments or beyond, will be determined by how things get settled, how things get sorted, how long to carry on for, etc., which is a lot of questions that we don't know the answers to here as of yet. So certainly quite a major impact here in the sports scene. Like as I mentioned before, we certainly don't want to get political on this channel. There's a lot bigger things to worry about in Ukraine than hockey, that's for sure. Our thoughts are foremost with the citizens and the people, and hopefully this conflict can come to an end peacefully as quickly as possible. But at the same time, obviously this being a hockey channel, this has had a big spin-off in the sports world, which is what we're seeing here again today. The IIHF really had no choice but to do this. But essentially, they were being urged by pretty well all other or most other hockey federations that deal with them in these tournaments. And they basically, a lot of them were saying, if you don't do it, we're going to refuse to play against those countries, and that causes a big issue as well. So they were kind of forced into this if they weren't going to do it on their own, which they may or may not have. It's hard and difficult to say, but at the same time, this was a very much a necessary step. Now, we've heard that some Russian players, especially ones that don't have contracts into next season in North America to play in the NHL, have a lot of concerns as well. Are they going to be able to continue to get work visas? Will the Canadian or American governments, have issues with that and not want to issue work visas for them to come work and play in North America? That's a potential issue. You have to think about the possibility of the draft coming up. As Russian players are going to have an impact that way. Will NHL clubs shy away from them even further? We already know that there's an issue there with NHL clubs being nervous about drafting Russian players, mostly due to the fact that they're concerned they're going to stay over in Russia and have to wait for them to come over for a really long time. A lot of them, quite often, not all cases, do wait to get through till they're a little bit more mature so they can get the shorter entry-level contract, which propels them to their next contract faster, gets them to the bigger money faster, because when they're younger, they tend to have that opportunity to make, probably a little bit better money or the same money in Russia. They get to stay home. They don't have to, leave and all that. And there's a lot of benefits for them staying. But you really have to also look and question and wonder the future of the KHL. There is a lot of economic sanctions being placed against Russia and Belarus from around the world. Obviously, we've seen the Russian stock market be impacted, their money devalued greatly. It's having a major economic impact, and you have to think that the KHL, which is largely run and funded on some wealthy Russian businessmen, if they're impacted greatly from these sanctions, will the KHL even have difficulty, I guess, staying afloat? I think it's a real concern. I'm not saying they're going to go under. I think it's a lot, way too early for that. But you do have to think that there's going to be an impact, and even if they don't fold, could there be cutbacks on what they want to be able to spend on players, which might entice them to want to go to North America quicker and even more than they did before. So there's that possibility too, right? So, there's so many different things here, when it comes to these Russian hockey players, not to mention, as they said in the NHL statement, like the ones that are already on NHL teams playing in North America, a lot of them apparently have been getting some nasty messages, and a lot of them are concerned for their safety. Not only are they concerned about speaking out because of the repercussions from what they're scared could happen in Russia to their families or to them down the line. A lot of them are fearful to speak out against their government. We know that's a real legit thing, understandably so. And at the same time, if they're getting threats from other people that are, which I'm not really sure why, just because somebody's from a country and their country's doing something wrong, bad, whatever, doesn't make them guilty by association per se. We've seen what happened way back in history with other major wars in quarantine camps and all that kind of stuff, and we don't really need to go down those roads again. That's not something I want to see, obviously. So certainly these players are concerned, and there's extra security beefed up for their protection. So they're kind of, having a lot of stress and extra tension added to their lives, which I'm sure they're already under, given the fact that they're country has declared war, or basically on one of their neighboring countries. So certainly a whole lot going on. It'd be interesting to see how everything plays out. All we can say is we really hope we see a quick and peaceful solution to all this, and hopefully a lot of these potential longer term impacts won't necessarily be as much of a concern down the line. But certainly we'll see where things go. But for now, Russia and Belarus not a part of any IIHF events for the foreseeable future. And even though this is going to impact a lot of the players, which really have nothing to do with what's going on from the government, it's one of those things that seems inevitable and unfortunately necessary because of the circumstances right now in the state of everything going on in that part of the world. So certainly let me know your thoughts on the announcement here by the IIHF as well as the NHL here today. We'll discuss further down in the comments. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams as well as international hockey events. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.